Welcome back to XRP On Moon, the channel where we break down the biggest, boldest, and most game-changing developments in the world of XRP, Ripple, and the future of global finance. Today's topic is something that has been quietly building momentum behind the scenes, yet if it turns out to be even partially true, it could reshape everything we think we know about XRP's role in the financial system. The idea that Elon Musk is about to fully adopt XRP might sound extreme at first, but when you start connecting the dots, analyzing the patterns, and looking at how the financial and tech worlds are converging, it begins to feel less like speculation and more like a scenario that the market is slowly preparing for. Now let's be clear, whenever the name Elon Musk enters any conversation, markets move, narratives shift, and entire ecosystems can explode overnight. We've already seen what happened with Bitcoin and Dogecoin when Musk gave them attention. But XRP is not just another cryptocurrency. XRP operates on a fundamentally different level, deeply tied to financial institutions, cross-border payments, and liquidity solutions that could potentially replace or upgrade outdated global systems like SWIFT. So when whispers begin to circulate that Musk could be aligning with XRP, the implications are far more significant than just a temporary price pump. We are talking about a potential integration between one of the most influential tech visionaries and one of the most utility-driven digital assets in existence. Think about Musk's current ecosystem. He controls companies that span electric vehicles, space exploration, artificial intelligence, and most importantly for this discussion, digital communication and payments infrastructure. With his acquisition and transformation of X, formerly known as Twitter, Musk has made it very clear that he wants to build an everything app. This includes messaging, content, social media, and critically, payments. He has openly discussed integrating financial services into the platform, aiming to compete with systems like PayPal, WeChat, and traditional banking apps. But here's the key question: what underlying system will power those payments? Traditional rails are slow, expensive, and fragmented. Musk is not known for choosing outdated technology. He consistently pushes for systems that are faster, more efficient, and scalable on a global level. This is where XRP starts to enter the picture in a very serious way. XRP was specifically designed to solve the inefficiencies in cross-border transactions. It offers near-instant settlement, extremely low fees, and the ability to provide liquidity on demand without the need for pre-funded accounts. These are not just minor improvements. They represent a complete transformation of how money moves across the world. If Musk is building a global payment system within X, one that serves hundreds of millions or even billions of users, he will need a solution that can handle massive transaction volumes instantly while minimizing costs. XRP already does exactly that. Now let's go deeper. Musk has repeatedly criticized inefficiencies in financial systems and has shown interest in blockchain technology, even if his public stance has been somewhat unpredictable. But behind the scenes, companies and institutions are not operating based on tweets. They are making strategic decisions based on performance, scalability, and long-term viability. XRP's underlying technology, supported by Ripple's partnerships with banks and financial institutions worldwide, positions it uniquely as a bridge asset for global liquidity. This is not a meme-driven asset, it is infrastructure. There's also another layer to consider: timing. The financial world is currently undergoing a massive transformation. Central banks are exploring digital currencies, cross-border payment systems are being reevaluated, and legacy networks are under pressure to modernize. At the same time, tech companies are stepping into financial services, blurring the line between banks and platforms. Musk's ambition to turn X into a financial super app aligns perfectly with this global shift. And when you analyze which digital assets are actually built to support this kind of scale, XRP consistently stands out. Of course, none of this is officially confirmed, and it's important to approach these developments with a critical mindset. However, the market often moves ahead of official announcements. Smart money doesn't wait for headlines. It looks at trends, connections, and probabilities. The idea of Musk adopting XRP is not just about one man choosing a cryptocurrency. It represents a potential merging of technological ecosystems that could accelerate XRP's adoption far beyond its current reach. Now, continuing from where we left off, the real question that everyone should be asking is not just whether Elon Musk could adopt XRP, but why XRP specifically would even enter his ecosystem in the first place. To understand this, we need to step away from hype for a moment and look at the actual mechanics of global payments, digital infrastructure, and the direction Musk is clearly pushing his platforms toward. Musk's vision for X is not just a social media platform anymore. It is evolving into a financial layer of the internet. That means payments, remittances, merchant services, creator monetization, and potentially even banking-like features all under one roof. But building something like this is not as simple as adding a payment button. The real challenge is liquidity, settlement speed, and global compatibility. Traditional systems like SWIFT rely on intermediaries, settlement delays, and multiple layers of verification. Even modern fintech solutions still depend on legacy banking infrastructure behind the scenes. This is exactly the type of inefficiency Musk has historically tried to eliminate in every industry he enters. Now, here is where XRP becomes strategically interesting. XRP is not just another digital asset competing for attention in the crypto market. It is designed as a bridge currency, meaning it can facilitate instant value transfer between two different fiat currencies without requiring direct banking relationships between them. This is extremely powerful when you think about a platform like X, which is expected to operate globally from day one. Imagine a user in Pakistan sending money to a creator in the United States, or a business in Europe receiving payments from customers in Asia, all inside one app instantly without banking delays or high fees. That is exactly the type of friction XRP was built to remove. Another important angle is scalability. Musk's platforms do not operate on small user bases. We are talking about hundreds of millions of users potentially interacting with payment systems simultaneously. Any financial infrastructure integrated into X must be capable of handling massive transaction throughput without slowing down or becoming expensive. XRP's consensus mechanism allows for fast settlement times and high scalability compared to traditional proof-of-work systems. This makes it more suitable for real-time financial applications rather than just speculative trading. But beyond technical capability, there is also the strategic alignment factor. Musk has always positioned himself as someone who challenges legacy systems. Whether it was Tesla challenging traditional automakers or SpaceX disrupting aerospace monopolies, his pattern is consistent: identify outdated infrastructure and replace it with something more efficient. The global financial system is arguably one of the most outdated infrastructures still in use today. Cross-border payments alone still take days in many cases and involve multiple intermediaries taking fees at every step. XRP directly targets this problem, which makes it conceptually aligned with Musk's broader philosophy of disruption. There is also the matter of regulatory evolution. Over the past few years, XRP has gained increasing clarity in terms of its legal status compared to many other digital assets. While the regulatory landscape is still developing, XRP has positioned itself more as a utility-focused digital asset rather than a speculative token. This distinction matters a lot for any large-scale corporate integration, especially for a platform like X that would need to operate under various jurisdictions globally. Stability, clarity, and utility are far more attractive than volatility when it comes to real-world payment systems. At the same time, we cannot ignore the psychological and market impact factor. Musk is not just a technology leader, he is also one of the most influential figures in modern market sentiment. A single tweet or hint from him has historically moved entire asset classes. If there is even a small signal that XRP is being considered for integration into X's payment infrastructure, the market reaction would likely be immediate and massive. But more importantly, institutional interest would also accelerate because institutions tend to follow utility-driven adoption trends rather than retail speculation. What makes this discussion even more interesting is that we are currently in a transitional phase for global finance. Digital currencies, tokenized assets, and blockchain-based settlement systems are no longer theoretical. They are actively being tested and deployed by financial institutions. In such an environment, platforms that bridge traditional finance and blockchain technology become extremely valuable. XRP sits directly in that intersection, acting as a bridge between old systems and new digital frameworks. So when we step back and look at the bigger picture, the idea of Musk adopting XRP is not just about one technology replacing another, it is about convergence, where social media, payments, and blockchain infrastructure merge into a single seamless ecosystem. And if XRP becomes part of that equation, it would not just be another integration. It would represent a foundational layer of how money moves inside one of the most powerful digital platforms in the world. Picking up from where we left off, the growing discussion around Elon Musk and XRP is not happening in isolation. It is part of a much larger shift in how people are interpreting signals from the tech and financial world. In markets like crypto, narratives often form before facts, and those narratives can sometimes become self-fulfilling. That is why it is important to understand not only the technical side of XRP, but also the psychological and strategic environment surrounding both Musk's ecosystem and the global adoption of digital assets. One of the most important things to recognize is that speculation in financial markets is rarely random. It tends to cluster around moments where transformation is already underway. Right now, we are in a period where traditional banking systems are under pressure, payment platforms are competing to become super apps, and blockchain technology is slowly being integrated into real-world infrastructure. This convergence creates the perfect environment for theories like Musk adopting XRP to gain traction. It is not just about one tweet or one rumor. It is about the alignment of multiple trends moving in the same direction. When we examine Elon Musk's track record, a pattern emerges. He does not typically build systems that depend on slow, outdated intermediaries. Instead, he tends to prioritize direct, high-efficiency solutions that scale globally. Whether it is Tesla's direct-to-consumer model or SpaceX's vertical integration of rocket production, the goal is always to remove unnecessary layers. If we apply this same logic to financial infrastructure, it becomes clear why traditional payment systems would not fit easily into Musk's long-term vision for X. X is being shaped into something far more ambitious than a social platform. It is gradually evolving into a digital ecosystem where communication, commerce, and financial transactions exist in one unified space. In order for such a system to function at a global level, it must support instant payments, low transaction costs, and cross-border interoperability without friction. These requirements are extremely difficult to meet with legacy banking systems alone. This is where blockchain-based solutions become relevant, and where XRP often enters the conversation due to its specific design purpose. XRP's role as a bridge asset is particularly important in this context. Unlike many cryptocurrencies that focus primarily on decentralization or store-of-value narratives, XRP was built with a clear focus on liquidity and settlement efficiency. It is designed to move value between different currencies quickly, without requiring pre-funded accounts in every destination country. This is not a theoretical advantage. It directly addresses one of the biggest inefficiencies in global finance today. If X were to enable instant global payments for users and creators, a system like this would be essential. Another layer to consider is the increasing institutional familiarity with blockchain infrastructure. Over the past several years, financial institutions, payment processors, and even central banks have been exploring digital settlement systems. This means that the idea of integrating blockchain-based liquidity solutions is no longer unusual. In fact, it is becoming part of mainstream financial experimentation. In such an environment, assets like XRP gain relevance not because of hype, but because of their potential role in real settlement systems. At the same time, we also need to understand how influence works in modern markets. Elon Musk is not just a CEO. He is a narrative amplifier. His public statements have historically impacted both retail sentiment and institutional awareness. This means that even indirect signals connected to his companies can trigger significant market reactions. If XRP were ever mentioned in relation to X's payment infrastructure, even in an exploratory or experimental way, it could instantly reshape market perception of the asset. However, what makes this situation even more interesting is the timing of all these developments. The global financial system is currently transitioning toward faster, more digital native forms of settlement. Stablecoins are gaining traction, central bank digital currencies are being tested, and fintech companies are competing to reduce transaction friction. In this race toward efficiency, any technology that offers speed, scalability, and interoperability becomes strategically valuable. XRP's architecture places it directly in this category, which is why it repeatedly appears in discussions about next-generation payment systems. It is also worth noting that large-scale integration decisions are rarely made overnight. If a company like X were to explore blockchain-based payments, it would likely go through phases of testing, partnerships, and pilot programs before any official adoption. This means that early signals are often subtle. Discussions, research activity, infrastructure experimentation, and strategic hiring patterns. Markets tend to interpret these early signals long before official confirmation ever arrives. So when people talk about Elon Musk adopting XRP, what they are really reacting to is not a confirmed event, but a convergence of probabilities. It is the combination of Musk's ambition to build a global financial ecosystem, XRP's technical suitability for cross-border liquidity, and the broader shift toward blockchain-based financial infrastructure. Each of these elements exists independently, but when viewed together, they create a narrative that feels increasingly relevant in today's financial landscape. Building on the momentum of what we've discussed so far, the next phase of this entire narrative revolves around one critical question. What would actually need to happen for something like XRP integration within Elon Musk's ecosystem to move from speculation into something tangible, even if only at an experimental level? Because in reality, massive technological shifts do not happen through sudden announcements. They happen through a sequence of quiet developments, infrastructure testing, and strategic alignment long before the public ever becomes aware. If we analyze how Musk typically operates, especially with companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and now X, there is a consistent pattern of incremental evolution followed by sudden public realization. Systems are built, tested internally, refined, and only then revealed when they are already functional or close to deployment. This means that if any blockchain-based payment system were to become part of X, it would likely already be under exploration in some form before the market ever hears about it. That is why discussions around XRP and Musk should not be viewed as a single event prediction, but rather as a potential trajectory that could unfold over time. Now, in this context, XRP becomes interesting not because of speculation alone, but because of its real-world applicability in a system that demands speed and global interoperability. If X is truly aiming to become a financial super app, it cannot rely solely on traditional banking partnerships. Banks are slow, geographically restricted, and heavily dependent on compliance layers that differ from country to country. For a platform operating at internet scale, this introduces friction that directly contradicts the vision of seamless global payments. This is exactly where blockchain-based liquidity solutions enter the conversation again, and XRP consistently stands out in that category due to its settlement efficiency and bridge currency design. Another important aspect to consider is the user experience layer. Musk's platforms are known for prioritizing simplicity on the surface while maintaining complex systems underneath. Tesla cars feel simple to operate, but behind the scenes they are powered by extremely advanced engineering. The same principle applies to X. Users are not going to interact with blockchain directly. They will simply send and receive money instantly. The complexity of currency conversion, liquidity routing, and settlement would need to be handled invisibly in the background. A system like XRP's network design could theoretically support this kind of back-end functionality, where users never see the complexity but benefit from the speed and efficiency it provides. We also need to consider the role of liquidity in global payment ecosystems. One of the biggest challenges in cross-border transactions is not just transferring value, but ensuring there is enough liquidity available at all times to facilitate instant settlement. Traditional systems solve this by pre-funding accounts in different regions, which is inefficient and capital-intensive. XRP's model, on the other hand, aims to reduce the need for pre-funded liquidity by acting as a bridge asset that can move value dynamically between currencies. In a high-volume environment like X, where millions of microtransactions could occur daily, this efficiency becomes extremely valuable. At the same time, institutional behavior is also shifting. Financial institutions that once dismissed blockchain technology are now actively exploring it for settlement optimization. This gradual acceptance is important because any large-scale integration involving payments must operate within regulatory frameworks. XRP's positioning as a utility-focused asset, along with its increasing engagement in regulatory discussions, gives it a unique advantage compared to many other digital assets that are still viewed primarily as speculative instruments. However, even if all of these technical and strategic alignments exist, there is still one crucial factor that determines whether something like this gains traction in the public narrative: signal amplification. Elon Musk is one of the few individuals in the world whose actions and statements can instantly reshape market sentiment. If there were even indirect indications that X is experimenting with blockchain-based settlement or liquidity systems, the market would likely interpret it as a potential gateway for assets like XRP. This is where perception begins to move ahead of confirmation. And this is exactly how major financial narratives are often born. First comes the technological possibility, then the structural alignment, followed by subtle signals, and finally, public awareness. By the time official confirmation arrives, the market is often already priced in expectations. That is why discussions like XRP and Musk tend to gain traction long before any concrete evidence exists, because participants are trying to position themselves at the earliest stage of a potential transformation. It is also important to remain grounded in reality while analyzing these possibilities. There is currently no official confirmation of XRP being adopted by Musk's companies, and any claims suggesting certainty would be inaccurate. However, what can be analyzed is the compatibility between vision and technology. Musk's ambition to build a global financial layer and XRP's purpose as a cross-border liquidity solution exist in overlapping conceptual spaces. Whether that overlap ever becomes a functional integration is a question that only time and corporate strategy will answer. It's important to bring everything into a clear, grounded perspective, while still understanding why this narrative around Elon Musk and XRP continues to gain attention across the crypto space. At this stage, we are no longer just talking about a single possibility. We are looking at a broader framework of how technological evolution, financial disruption, and market psychology all interact at the same time. If there is one key takeaway from everything discussed so far, it is this: major financial integrations do not begin with announcements. They begin with alignment. Alignment of vision, alignment of technology, and alignment of timing. In the case of Elon Musk and his vision for X, the direction is increasingly clear. He wants to build a global, all-in-one platform where communication and payments exist seamlessly together. That kind of system cannot function efficiently if it is held back by slow settlement layers, fragmented banking networks, or high-cost cross-border transactions. This is why the discussion around XRP continues to resurface, not because of confirmed partnerships, but because XRP represents a specific type of solution that directly targets one of the biggest weaknesses in global finance: liquidity movement across borders. The idea of instant settlement between different currencies is not just a convenience feature. It is a structural upgrade to how money moves globally, and in a platform that could potentially serve hundreds of millions of users, even small improvements in efficiency translate into massive real-world impact. However, it is equally important to separate narrative from confirmation. As of now, there is no official evidence that Elon Musk or X has adopted XRP in any capacity. The conversation remains speculative, driven by pattern recognition, technological compatibility, and market interpretation rather than confirmed partnerships. But in the world of digital assets, speculation often plays a much larger role than people realize, because markets are forward-looking by nature. Prices, sentiment, and attention often shift based on expectations long before official developments occur. What makes this situation particularly interesting is how quickly financial ecosystems are evolving. Traditional banking systems are slowly being challenged by real-time payment networks, stablecoins, and blockchain-based settlement layers. Governments are exploring digital currencies, companies are experimenting with tokenized payments, and fintech platforms are competing to remove friction from global transactions. In this environment, any technology that offers speed, scalability, and interoperability naturally becomes part of the conversation. XRP sits in a unique position within this transformation. Its design is focused on bridging value across different financial systems, rather than replacing them entirely. This bridge function is what makes it relevant in discussions about global payment infrastructure, especially in scenarios where multiple currencies and jurisdictions must interact seamlessly. Whether or not it is ultimately chosen by any specific platform, its utility case remains one of the most discussed in the digital asset space. At the same time, Elon Musk's influence on market behavior cannot be ignored. He has repeatedly demonstrated the ability to shift attention, drive narratives, and influence speculative momentum across multiple asset classes. This does not guarantee adoption of any specific technology, but it does mean that even indirect association can have significant market effects. If X were ever to publicly explore blockchain-based payments or liquidity solutions, the market would almost certainly begin evaluating assets like XRP through a much more aggressive lens. So where does that leave us? It leaves us in a space between possibility and confirmation. On one side, we have a visionary tech leader aiming to reshape global payments through X. On the other side, we have a digital asset designed specifically to improve cross-border liquidity and settlement efficiency. The intersection of these two ideas is what fuels ongoing speculation. But until any official integration, partnership, or technical implementation is confirmed, this remains a narrative-driven scenario rather than a factual one. The most important approach for anyone watching this space is balance. Understanding the potential is valuable, but so is recognizing the difference between speculation and reality. Markets can move quickly on stories, but long-term value is ultimately driven by adoption, utility, and real-world usage. Whether XRP becomes part of Musk's ecosystem or not, its role in the broader evolution of global financial infrastructure continues to be significant. And finally, before we end this video, it's important to say this clearly for every viewer. This content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. The cryptocurrency market is highly volatile and unpredictable, and any investment decisions should be made only after doing your own research and consulting with a qualified financial advisor. Always remember that past discussions, speculation, or narratives do not guarantee future outcomes. Thank you for watching XRP on Moon. Stay informed, stay critical, and we'll see you in the next one.